welcome back to my channel. My name is Adam Lee Henderson of the Gilded Age brand, and I am unpacking and reacting to the Gilded Age Season 3. If you haven't already, go watch episodes 1, 2, and 3 on HBO Max. That's where I'm streaming it, and it's incredible. I love this show. It's so, well, I love the genre of historical fiction, right? You're bringing history, and they use a lot of history, but then you're also bringing in characters to complement the storyline, right? You're introducing these made-up characters that help enhance this show. I mean, it's beautiful, and I love seeing history. I love watching history unfold as we see it. I really want to unpack episode 3 with just a few observations and maybe a few predictions for the future. But first, I want to tap into Mr. Russell. Mr. Russell is giving us the business this season. If you notice, throughout every episode, for the first, second, and third episode, he's having a lot of conversation, and it seems like he's struggling a little bit, struggling with, not making ends meet, but struggling with getting what he desires approved, or making allegiances where, something is a go. He's fighting for his life for some reason. I'm not sure if he's trying to maintain financial stability or just increase or enhance what he already has. This is a rich family. And so, of course, this dynamic is also bleeding into his relationship with Gladys, his daughter. You notice that, he said in, I think, episode 1 or 2, that, hey, I'm going to fight with you. I'm going to stand with you, and I want you to marry for love. But when it comes to his wife, he's kind of wrestling with, well, I would say he's kind of tussling verbally with, hey, the idea of we got to support Gladys, but also I got to stand with you. And so it's kind of like he's telling Gladys, give him a chance. See, Mr. Russell, I feel like Mr. Russell is kind of playing chess with both his wife, his daughter, and then also whatever business venture he's trying to tap into. He's playing a game, and to me, I think he's playing it well. This is a smart cookie. He built his legacy. He didn't inherit it. He's the new money in regards to, the old versus new money type idea when it came to the Gilded Age. If people had old money, those were the elite. But if you had new money, they kind of looked at you differently because you don't come with class or a system or a legacy history, right? And I think that's interesting for this family because they tried to prove, hey, I'm here and I got something to offer, especially Ms. Russell. That's, Mrs. Russell wanted that from the get-go. She wanted to say, okay, let me create an opportunity here. And that's based on real history. That's based on real facts in regards to, what has happened in the Gilded Age in real life. So I think that's pretty cool to see. The kiss, the beautiful kiss between Marian and the son, Larry Russell. I love this love story. I think it's beautiful to see an actual love story depicted in this show, right? A lot of times people are marrying off of status, and they're marrying for status, right? Or they're marrying to maintain, what have you. That's what the Duke is really trying to marry for, and then Gladys wants to marry off Gladys due to that idea, right? They want status, they want success, they want prestige. But Marian and Larry, they have such a beautiful love story. They were in love since season 1. But of course they had to go down different paths as they, as you saw in the seasons 1 and 2, but in season 3, we're seeing that Marian is very careful. She's very careful with her actions, and she doesn't want to make the wrong decision because, of course, she has an image to uphold. And so with that being said, she's caught by one of the maids with her kissing Larry in whatever room that we're in their house, and she's now nervous as to, oh my God, she's gonna tell Mrs. Russell, Mrs. Russell's gonna come at me, and there's gonna be a huge scandal, honey. And so I think that's pretty interesting how that dynamic is going to maintain. I believe that they're going to find out eventually, and I think there might be a little bit of rift. Not necessarily a negative thing, but I think Mrs. Russell is going to be a bit apprehensive. She wants the best for her children, and I don't think she has a dislike for Marian, but I think she's going to be a little apprehensive, like, I like her, but I really think you can do better. So I'm curious to see, I don't know if she's gonna, give opposition, or because he's the boy, is she gonna just say, you know what, marry who you want. You're a man. Aunt Agnes is taking this new life really, really hard. You notice in this episode, she's now mentioning that she's not getting a lot of invites as she used to. And I think she's thinking that it's due to the financial status that shifted, right? And so she mentions, there's a line that says, hey, I'm gonna go to Newport and start a new life with the cast-offs or the individuals who are now no longer allowed or accepted in society due to whatever reasons, divorce or scandals that happen. And I think that's hilarious to see Agnes this way. I feel like Aunt Agnes is going to reclaim her throne. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I really believe that that's going to come into fruition. I don't know if that's through her son or what have you, but I feel like that's going to happen. It'd be interesting to see Aunt Agnes and Ada kind of now at odds, not necessarily in a negative way, but they're like fighting for their claim to be the head of the household. I think that'll be an interesting storyline. One thing I'm extremely excited about is Felicia Rashad now on the Gilded Age. She's an icon. She's a legend. She is the moment, as Wendy Williams would say. I mean, it's incredible to see her now, but what is interesting the most is now we see this dynamic with Black socialism, right? This culture of Black communities now, kind of like it's like white supremacy passed down into our Black culture, right? It's skin color plays a part. Also, if you were a former slave, or Felicia Rashad, she looks down on the Scott family because the Scotts, number one, she considers them salesmen. And he had to basically work for his status as a former slave and now free, and has this kind of like dynamic. You notice that she's flaunting her family history, in comparison to the Scott's family history, how she's been a Newport, or this family has been in, this status for generations, and she's even looking at the educational status of her kids and comparing it to the Scott's family. And I think it's interesting to see that played in the Gilded Age. That is so cool to see, because I mean, that's happening even to today. You look at the brown paper bag theory from, the early 50s and 60s, and all of these different dynamics. I think that's top notch. You notice that dynamic with her grandchildren when they come into the house and she's telling her daughter or her son or whatever, like, make sure you keep an umbrella and cover those grandchildren because the sun is out there. And the Scott family overhears and they're like, oh my gosh, here we go. This is the dynamic that they're facing. And you can tell Felicia Rashad, she's amazing, right? She's able to portray this character, and really look down upon this family due to, their lifestyle, but also showcase, hey, this is what I'm about, without actually saying it. I am intrigued to see this storyline play out, but also enamored with the idea that these Broadway legends, Felicia Rashad and her husband, who are now on the show, and it's beautiful. And I don't think she's apprehensive of Peggy, but I know she's just a high and mighty individual, and Dr. Kirkland, great addition to this show, and I think he's going to be a great asset. I love the idea of Peggy and Dr. Kirkland now together, and I hope that it flourishes throughout this season. So really intrigued to see what happens next. Now, here we go to the end of the episode. Hector is back. The Duke is back. And look who's shocked and scared. of course, Gladys. But I love the human emotion that happens when the Duke and Gladys are now in their private space having a conversation. Of course, Gladys is giving him a chance to have the conversation due to what her father, Mr. Russell, said. And in that conversation, they find this camaraderie of friendship, where she admires his respectful truthfulness and she's willing to give it a chance. And so he's vowing, hey, let's be truthful, let's be real, and let's give this a shot. And so they agreed to be married. And of course, they announced this engagement, of course, right after. It's heavy. Now we see in the next episode, they're about to get married. I believe that she's going to walk down that aisle. It's going to be an interesting episode next week to see how that plays out. I hope that Gladys turns out okay. I really do. I want the best for that character. But it's that must be tough. That must be tough for that generation of that time period, right? For people to be handed off into marriage. I think that is an interesting storyline, and so really, it's interesting to see how that plays out. Anyway, those are my observations of season 3, episode 3. You guys definitely should check this out if you haven't already. But also, if you've seen the episode and you're just curious about my reactions as I'm doing every episode, give me some feedback in the comment section if you agree or disagree with something that I've said, or even if you notice something different, but also just want to, bounce off some ideas and concepts based on what we've talked about in this video. Y'all, this is incredible. This is a interesting journey for me to react to episodes and shows that I love. And this is new to me. So thank you all so much for watching. And don't forget to like, share, comment, and most importantly, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. I'll see y'all next week for episode 4. The Gilded Age, season 3, HBO Max.